Well, thanks for coming this lunchtime. Just going to introduce Jerry Wilson, our speaker today. Jerry's a retired English professor and a freelance journalist and author of this new book, which hopefully you all have. Grew up on a farm in Oklahoma, where he developed his appreciation for nature in the wild, and moved to South Dakota in the late 70s, correct?
78.
78, there we go. He's written one previous book, American Artery, A Pan-American Journey, in which he chronicles his 5,000-mile trip from Manitoba to Panama. And also writes many articles, numerous articles for publications such as South Dakota Magazine and Nebraska Life. In 1982, Jerry and Norma, his wife, purchased and moved onto some land outside of Vermilion, and this book covers the years they spent there and their efforts to live in harmony with nature and the land. There'll be a chance to ask Jerry some questions and have your book signed, so without further ado, Jerry Wilson.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, let's see. I think maybe I can stencil the podium, given the place we are. I want to just talk a little bit about the book and how it came to be, and how I got where I am at this point in my life, and then I'll read a short passage, and then I'll give anybody a chance to interject any questions or comments. As Martin said, it was about 25 years ago that Norma and I moved, we left Vermilion and moved out on the bluff northwest of Vermilion. And we, with help from a lot of friends, built the geosolar house in which we still live. That's extremely energy efficient. We planted nearly 1,000 trees in a fruit orchard and began planting big gardens and trying to figure out ways in which we could live as harmoniously as possible in the natural environment. I had lived most of my life in rural areas, so it was just kind of like coming home for me to get back out there. When I was working on the other book that Martin mentioned, American Artery, that had a similar theme. I think the thing that both of these books have in common is that they're both sort of quests for sustainability. I believe strongly that the earth is sustainable, and I believe that many of modern practices are threatening that sustainability in very serious ways. In '95, when I took the trip down the Pan American Highway, I was really looking for signs of sustainability and hope, and looking for people who were working in balance and harmony with each other in the natural world. I found many of them. I also found advanced environmental destruction all the way down. I also discovered that nowhere in this 5,000 miles, except for perhaps small areas in Guatemala and a few places in Mexico, were the native peoples and native flora and fauna still pretty much intact. Most places, all things native had been replaced by imports, people and plants, and so it's kind of disconcerting, to see how far we have taken this continent away from its natural state. And so I came home with a renewed appreciation for that, and kind of renewed sense of the urgency to do what I could in this country, in this state, and particularly on our little scrap of Bluff, to not only discover ways that we could live more harmoniously within the ecosystem of which we're part, but also to maybe in some ways begin to enhance that, or to try to discover ways to do that. During these 25 years, I have always kept a lot of notes, journal scraps. I'm not methodical about it, but I keep a lot of notes of what's going on and what I'm doing and so on, and I began to drag these out and put them together and to try to convert them into what became Waiting for Coyote's Call. I know that most of you have had a chance to look at the book, so you know kind of how it's laid out in the sections and chapters. Excuse me, camera. Just dropped my stuff. And so I try to kind of group the subject matter in hopefully ways that you can kind of progress through it all the way from siding and building a solar house to the natural elements that we live with on the bluff, and the neighbors, prehistoric, American Indian, pioneer and modern, and birds and animals. The final section is somewhat more political because when you consider issues of land use and the responsibility imposed upon one who has temporary possession of land to protect that land and to try to improve it or at least not destroy it, I think then it turns to political, and so I deal with some of the broader environmental issues that are involved. I thought I'd read a passage today from the chapter about our four-legged relatives with whom we share the bluff. This chapter begins with a quote from Job in the Old Testament. "Ask now the beasts, and they shall teach thee." This chapter is called Earthbound Friends, and I'll just read a few pages of it. "In spite of the fact that I carry no gun, I am an insatiable hunter, seeking contact with the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. It is they who provide my greatest pleasure in life. It is they and the growing floral diversity of the bluff we share that give me hope.